Hi, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Not Just Leadership podcast. I'm your host, Dominic. Thanks so much for joining us today on episode number 11. Really excited for today's episode. I'm here in Cairns in North Queensland, Australia. Beautiful background, as you can see, and really keen to talk about a topic that I think is really important in today's society for leadership. It's the topic of victimization. And so, over the past few months, as we've been progressing through our podcast episodes, we've interviewed a lot of interesting leaders from the Pacific and Latin America and talked about some really poignant topics such as courage, communication, spirit of excellence, volunteering. And so, I'm really keen to dive into this subject of victimization and um, in leadership today, I think victimization is this mindset that keeps us stuck in the past and what happened to us, rather than what we can do next, rather than taking ownership of our story and of our trajectory. And so, in today's episode, I don't want to dismiss or pretend hardship or pain doesn't exist, but I also want to recognize that we have a lot of influence and power how we view the world, rather than staying in a place of blame or self pity. Let's empower ourselves to have a positive outlook and to, um, you know, take up the fight and keep going. So I'm going to talk about what victimization looks like in leadership. My personal example, or touch on a little bit of an example, and a conversation about how we can move from victimhood to a mindset of responsibility and resilience. So let's jump right in. So the difference between being a victim and living like one. So victimization is a state of mind where we stop believing that we have agency, where life happens to us instead of us participating, shaping it. And so everyone in life faces their own hardships, setbacks, betrayals, unfairness, but not everyone stays there in that position. Some let the weight of the world sink them, and others use that as fire and energy to continue going and to chart their future. And so you can't control everything that happens to you. It's just simply, not possible. It's not how the world works. Things happen to us. We get mistreated. We get betrayed. We you know have bad things happen to us. But let's control what we can control. Let's pause and reflect. Um, think about it, and then use that as the basis to keep leading, to take ownership of our life. In leadership, many leaders um, hold on to the blame when they lose their capacity to lead. They don't recognize, or they do recognize, but they internalize the pain and the shame for when they're no longer in a position to lead. But leadership requires ownership, so it requires responsibility, and it requires us to make a physical, daily, mental decision to keep going, to step forward, to come back for more, to give our best for other people. And so, where in your life have you been continuing to rehearse the story of what happened to you, continuing to replay it, continuing to go back on that, instead of rewriting the story of what's next? What are you doing next? Where are you going? What goals and dreams and ambitions do you have? And so, I really want to encourage you to press into that, to understand this victimization mentality that we've been taught in society, and to reverse this trend and empower and equip ourselves to move forward with confidence, with faith, with purpose, with excellence, no matter what's happened to us and no matter what will happen to us in the future. So we need to shift the blame of responsibility. I've had many situations where there's been times of disappointment, criticism, misunderstanding in my leadership journey and professional journey. And it's very easy to feel bitter when you've been wronged or frustrated or overlooked for something. But you reach this shift, you reach this turning point when you realize that Staying in that mindset is costing you your peace. It's costing you your comfort. It's costing you your purpose. Staying this continual mindset of frustration, of wrongness, of being overlooked is feeding this negative attitude, is just making things worse for you. And ultimately, that's not where we want to be. That's not a happy place. That's not a place where we have confidence and peace. So what I've realized is instead of waiting for circumstances or people to change, we need to change our response and change our attitude. You might be working with people who always blame you when something goes wrong, who always complain that there's nothing to do, who always, who might even defame you and make defamatory remarks that simply are baseless. But you're the one who chooses how you respond. Are you going to get up and work harder, work smarter, work better, and prove that these things, aren't necessarily true? Engage with that person, give them activities to develop, give them the support they need, but also understand that that person also needs to take on the responsibility. That person also needs to step up to their role. And there's only so much you can do. So focus on what you can control rather than having this mindset of victimization. What we need to do is really reclaim responsibility, not in the sense of fault, being responsible for fault, but in the sense of freedom, finding where we can be successful, finding where we can make a difference, and not letting labels or tags be put on ourselves, not letting people victimize us, not letting us victimize ourselves. Great leaders take accountability, even when it's an uncomfortable time or an uncomfortable moment, because it provides them with agency, provides them, empowers them to make decisions going forward. So I've got 5 points here about how we can live free from victimization, how we can choose responsibility and empower ourselves. And so here's my 5 points. Number 1 is acknowledge reality. So there's no point denying your situation. Denial isn't a strength. Having clarity about your situation is. So acknowledge your reality. Acknowledge where you're at. Acknowledge what's potentially happened to you and where you want to go, where you are right now. Acknowledge and reflect on that. Number 2 is separate fault from responsibility. So you may not be at fault for what's happened, but you can choose how to grow from it. Separate those two things, fault, responsibility, how you're going to respond. Okay? Maybe it wasn't necessarily your fault. Maybe you can picture and frame this as, okay, I'm taking responsibility for where things go next. Okay? So this draws into my 3rd point, which is shift the narrative. So instead of thinking, why me? Think, what now? What am I going to do? How am I going to respond to this? Shift the narrative in your mind to unlock this inner peace and to unlock this empowerment that you feel to keep going, to not stop. Number 4 is forgive and release. So carrying resentment anchors you to the past. So let's forgive what happened and release it and move on. Number 4, forgive and release. Number 5 is now take small steps forward. Okay? Take small steps forward. So once you've done these other 4 steps, let's take it one thing at a time. One small progress each day. It doesn't invalidate what's happened, but it transforms it into using it as energy, using it as fuel to keep moving forward. Taking ownership takes you from tragedy to transformation. Take ownership. Turn this situation and transform your life around it and because of it. So we see a lot of victimization in leadership and culture today. It really matters for leaders and teams if they adopt this mentality, because the mindset, it quickly spreads. It's like a virus. It's becoming ingrained in our society to be a victim, to be put into identity groups. It breeds blame, it breeds resentment, It breeds stagnation. It breeds negativity. So let's push back against this culture of being victims, and let's be agents of change. Let's be role models. Let's make a positive difference. Let's contrast that with a culture of ownership, where people ask, how do I fix this problem? How do I fix this? Rather than who's to blame? Whose fault is it? Who caused that to me? Why is the system like that? No, how do I help? How do I make a difference? Leaders, they set the tone for this. If they walk in blame, if they walk in this mindset and this attitude, other people will follow and other people will mimic. People look up to leaders for guidance. So leadership needs to, and leaders need to own up and use these experiences to grow. We talked about in our other episodes, courage helps you face the truth. Having a purpose gives you a reason to keep moving forward. We talked about excellence, the spirit of excellence. It sets the standard for you to rise to. And now finding this freedom from victimization will give you the peace to lead again, to take back your journey, and to keep charting forward the path and purpose that you were called for. So today's not as long episode as other days. I really wanted to just touch on this point of victimization. We've all been hurt before. We've all been in, some terrible positions. But that's not where the story ends. That's where it begins. The moment we stop identifying ourselves as victims, we can start leading again, leading others, leading ourselves, stepping back into our purpose. And so I encourage you to reflect on where you've felt stuck in blame or disappointment, and to take one small step to address that, to reclaim your ownership and purpose, to wake up again with fresh eyes for a fresh day, with a fresh mindset, to look forward to the future, and to reject this mindset and mentality of being a victim. This is pulling us down. This is weighing us down. Let's break free from this mindset of victimization. So we need to start asking ourselves, how can we be faithful to ourselves, rejecting these negative thoughts and empowering ourselves to step forward with confidence for the future. Thank you for joining today's episode. If you're interested in the Not Just Leadership podcast, you'll be really keen to hear about some of the work we're doing at the Global Institute for Leadership. We're running world-class entrepreneurship and leadership programs. So get in touch with us on our Instagram at Global in Leadership. We're on all the other major social media platforms. Reach out about how we can work together to achieve your leadership and entrepreneurship dreams. Thanks for tuning in today to episode 11 here from beautiful Cairns. I hope you have a wonderful week ahead, and see you next week for another inspiring conversation with a leader from our community. Thanks so much. Take care.